Is drinking raw milk safe like RFK Jr. suggests? Can you reduce a glucose spike if you eat your food in quote unquote the right order? I'm registered dietitian Abby Sharp. I host a nutrition myth busting podcast called Bite Back with Abby Sharp. And those are just some of the questions I tackle with qualified experts on my show. There is so much food misinformation and disinformation out there, and it can feel impossible to know what's real and what's BS. On Bite Back, my goal is to help listeners create a pleasurable relationship with food, their body, and themselves, which in my opinion is the fundamental secret to good health. Listen to Bite Back wherever you get your podcasts.
Now you know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
AG Day is always a bad day for any government. The day the Auditor General releases their annual report, it usually generates a rough ride for the sitting government because that report is usually filled with all the ways the government is failing taxpayers. And this week's report from the Auditor General of Canada is no exception. Karen Hogan is the Auditor General of Canada. Her office spent some more time digging into a scandal that plagued the Trudeau government, ArriveCan. The AG examined the company at the heart of the scandal, GC Strategies, a small two-person firm with no IT experience, and nevertheless won a contract to develop that glitchy ArriveCan app during the pandemic, a project that ended up costing taxpayers roughly $60 million, even though the original estimate was $80,000. Hogan said her government uncovered numerous examples of public servants awarding millions of dollars worth of contracts to this firm without ever doing basic checks, like making sure the work was done, or the timesheets were reviewed, or the contractors had the appropriate security clearance. She warned this isn't just a GC Strategies thing. This is a government thing.
What we found here is that public servants were not applying procurement rules that at times are very clear. This echoed findings that I had in my previous audit on ArriveCan, as well as a previous audit on professional services that focused in on McKinsey & Company. I said it back then, and I'll repeat it now. I have no reason to believe that this is unique to two vendors. And that's why I believe the government needs to take a step back and look at why this behavior is happening. And is it that there are just too many rules that just keep getting added on audit after audit so that folks don't understand all of the rules? Or are people trying to go around them to make the process faster? Either way, the rules are meant to support transparency and accountability, and I would expect that those basic elements are followed by public servants.
This could be a matter of ongoing concern because of what we're hearing about the government's desire to make a big push into AI, artificial intelligence. Because if these procurement problems are embedded in the public service, the same mistakes could happen again as the government looks to make big investments scaling up Canada's AI sector. And that's the government's plan, according to the new Minister of AI, Evan Solomon.
Building scale, scaling our champions, driving adoption, driving, obviously, trust, and building sovereignty. So as I outlined in the speech, those are kind of the key parts of our mandate to use AI, digital, and digital innovation.
Making sure public servants are following even the most basic rules when it comes to handing out government contracts is the domain of the president of the Treasury Board. He's the minister responsible for the public service. Nowadays, it's Joel Lightbound. He says there's new training happening to make sure government workers know the rules about contracting.
It's already happening to make sure that the rules that are in place are followed, well understood across departments, because PSPC doesn't follow all the contracts. It goes back to the, in this case for ArriveCan was CBSA, to make sure that in each and every department the rules are followed and that proper documentation of what's being, hope to be achieved through a contract is being documented, achieved, and all the milestones being documented properly.
The Auditor General also delivered bad news for the government on its planned purchase of a fleet of F-35 fighter jets. They're going to cost a lot more than originally planned, about 50% more. The new figure, almost $28 billion, up from the $19 billion number that the Department of National Defense offered just 2 years ago. The reason, according to the Auditor General, rising inflation, fluctuations in foreign exchange rates, and high demand for military equipment.
Well, I would expect that once orders are placed for the jets, they will arrive as intended. But the government needs to be ready to receive them. I think that's my biggest concern here is the government needs to, or national defense needs to have a better focus on costs, on following and monitoring costs. And also to complete many of its plans were missing critical elements and progress against the plans were slow. Risk mitigation measures were, in our view, more reactive than proactive. This is a really long project, and in order to be ready to receive those planes, something needs to happen to fill the gap for trained pilots and to have the infrastructure ready, because right now the interim measures are only going to see additional costs.
It was expected the first planes of this new fleet would start arriving by 2028 at the latest. That's now been pushed back to 2031. The new Minister of National Defense is David McGuinty. He said this is the plane being used by almost all of our allies.
I've just come back from a NATO meeting where I believe 30 of the 32 NATO partners are participating in the F-35 program. They have participated since the beginning, some of whom have had significant industrial benefits. We've had our share of those. I think right now what we're seeing as we've looked at the Auditor General's report, a number of factors are at play here. And all of our NATO partners are affected by these factors. One was inflation. Obviously, we've seen an inflationary pressure on materials, logistical chains, supplies, construction, engineering. The second was, of course, the pandemic. And not only was Canada deeply affected by the pandemic and the United States, but every participating NATO partner has had to contend with the forces that the pandemic played on the entire acquisition and development of the F-35.
The government has placed this fighter jet program under review. There will be a report made public in the coming weeks, but the Minister of Defense still won't comment on the future of Canada's purchase of these planes.
We've already acquired 16 F-35 fighter jets. We'll be taking possession of those 16 F-35 fighter jets in the next several months, by the new year at the latest. Our Canadian pilots are going to begin flying those F-35s. We're moving towards a transition away from our F-18 fighter plane stock. We're going to begin with 16, and then we'll see where we are.
Canada's purchase of the F-35s has been a political football that now spans three governments. It was the Harper government that first announced it would be part of the program. Then it was shelved by the Trudeau government in 2015, only to see the Trudeau government reverse course and place an order for 88 of the jets back in 2022. Now it's the Carney government's turn to decide what to do next. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Well, with his university school year over, the professor has started his summer adventures. He is somewhere in Greece today, but he has set some time aside for us. We appreciate that. Professor Ian Lee, we have tracked him down somewhere in Greece. He is with the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much.
Very nice to hear from you. I want to talk about AI today. Canada has its first ever Minister of AI, someone you and I both know fairly well, Evan Solomon, the former broadcaster, and he recently gave a speech, and he said this is a Gutenberg moment of possibilities, referring to the inventor of the printing press. He said the Canadian government would invest in Canadian AI companies, quote, use government as essentially an industrial policy to champion our champions. He said getting a regulation right is critical to our economic destiny, and said there would be government investments in things like data centers, research, and protecting Canadian intellectual property. What do you think about the promise about AI? It's all the rage. Is it more hype than reality? What do you think?
No, if we'll deal with the AI first rather than the actors, the decision makers in Ottawa. AI is powerful, unbelievably powerful. It's only going to become more and more powerful as they work it out, as they iron out the wrinkles, as they develop the technology. This is not a static technology. It is moving at warp speed, and it is going to be transformative. It's going to be transformative in just across the entire economy. It's going to be transformative for healthcare research and finding new drugs, diagnosing illnesses. It's transformative already for students in doing research for their papers. It's making it very, very difficult to evaluate students. We're going to have to rise to the challenge. I'm not trying to say universities are obsolete, but I assure you that every professor I know and administrator I know is, we talk about this almost every day, how are we going to deal with this issue? Because students AI can write papers. They can write an entire paper. Tell me, I don't know, Plato's theory of philosophy or something, and it can come up with a very nice paper. And you name the subject, doesn't matter. And so it's creating a problem there. I don't want to sound like a Luddite. First off, I don't believe that you can take any technology and stick it back in the bottle. Once it's out of the bottle, then it goes forward. Whether it's the discovery of electricity or the discovery of aviation. Once you discover that things can go up in the sky called airplanes, well, you can't say, well, we're going to stop flying airplanes because we just think it creates too much disruption to society. You can't do that. So we've got to go forward. And I do believe that there's going to be a lot of good that comes out of AI to society, but it's going to be a bumpy road along the way, and it's going to require, new regulations, yes. It's going to require different ways of teaching, yes, and it's going to disrupt, as I said, probably every sector of society.
Okay, what do you think about the government making bets on certain AI companies?
I think, once again, unfortunately, and first, before I answer that question very critically, I was on Evan Solomon's show for, 3 or 4 years when he was the host of Power and Politics on CBC. I've spoken to him many, many times over the years, not recently, not since he became a minister. I think he's a very intelligent individual. He's a very, very competent individual, and I admire him, okay? So this isn't meant as any kind of a sly or cheap shot towards Evan Solomon at all. I think he's a very good broadcaster, and he comes out of the broadcasting tradition as a journalist. First and foremost, let me state, he's not an engineer. Neither am I. And he is not a scientist, and neither am I. I'm a business strategy prof. And but I don't believe that qualifies me as an engineer of AI. I mean, I understand. I use AI. I use it every day with the engines, the AI engines. But that doesn't mean that I'm an AI engineer. But I'm not trying to say that to put down Evan Solomon. What it points to is the problem that I believe that the Liberal Party has had for probably 40 or 50 years. And I've said this over and over, and I'm not a partisan. I don't belong to any political party. But there's this belief in top-down central planning that the government should pick winners and losers, that they should be picking the companies that are going to become the winners of AI. This is the antithesis of the American model. It is much closer to the European model, and people still haven't received the message. Europe is in deep, deep decline. Seriously, steep, deep decline. Paul Krugman, not a right-wing Trumpian. Paul Krugman is a Nobel, very liberal professor who despises Donald Trump. He published an article last week on his blog. Anybody can look it up, where he compared Europe of the last 25 years to the U.S. 25 years ago, Europe had the same average income per person as the U.S. Today, the U.S. is twice as wealthy per person. And he said, and others have talked about this, Mario Draghi, it's because of their excessive focus on regulation, top-down regulation, which is exactly the Canadian model that we're about to discuss. And if we want to get ahead, that is not the road to go down, where the government chooses the winners and the losers and tries to pick them. Yes, it should regulate and create a hands-off regulatory framework that does not pick winners and losers.
Okay, we'll be right back with a little bit more. AI is our focus today. Professor Ian Lee is with us. He's with the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. We'll be right back talking about the government's desire to scale up Canada's AI industry. I guess one of the things that would concern me, Professor, I'd like to know how much of a concern it is for you, is we're just one day removed from the Auditor General's report. And she cites numerous examples talking about ArriveCan, of public servants awarding millions of dollars worth of contracts, not doing basic checks, not making sure work was done, timesheets reviewed, appropriate security clearances for staff. One thing after another in the awarding of government contracts. So when I hear that the government wants to make a big push into another industry, as promising as it may be with AI, I just get a little concerned when you read a report like the Auditor General's report. How concerning is that for you?
Rob, you're right. It's much worse than that. And I'm not anti-public servant. Look, I'm a public servant as far as I'm concerned. I'm in a public university paid for by public taxpayer dollars indirectly. We're not a private for-profit corporation. And I have family members over the years, including my late father, who was 42 years in the public service in the government of Canada. I'm not trashing public servants and saying they're all a bunch of lazy bums. That is simply not true. Okay, that's just a crude and false allegation that some people have made against me. It is that the role of government is to be the policeman, the regulator of the hockey game, the referee of the hockey game or the football game. They're supposed to wear the pinstripes and call penalties when people cheat, because people do cheat. Their job is not to play on one of the hockey teams. Their job is not to tell Sidney Crosby when to shoot the puck. Let's use a couple of very concrete examples. And I've been criticizing it for 20 years, Bombardier. The government said they had a deeper understanding of the markets for commercial aviation, and they were going, along with the government of Quebec, we're going to manage Bombardier up to a world-class competitor of Boeing and Airbus. And I said this was nonsense on stilts, on steroids, because they said the Europeans and the Americans will never allow their two, darlings, if I can call it that, to allow a Canadian company to take market share from them. And that's exactly what they did. They beat up and they destroyed Bombardier. This is well documented. Then we've got the much more recent example of the battery plants. The deep thinkers at Industry Canada and Mr. Champagne, they knew better than the market did. And so they said, we're going to determine where the battery plants are located, who is going to make them, how much will go in, and so forth. And that, we now know, lies in ruins. So the point that I'm making is the markets are far too fast, they're far too dynamic, and governments are far too slow because of necessary checks and balances in government that must exist, and the right of stakeholders and voters and interest groups and so forth to protest. That's not how technology works. It's far too dynamic. It's far too fast. And the idea that the government of Canada, a $2 trillion GDP economy, is going to determine this hundreds of billions, even moving into the trillions future economy, this one little country, and we're going to dictate to who? The Americans? Come on, people. Come on. Let's get serious. This is not going to happen. It is not going to happen. I don't care if the man from GLAAD comes down or God comes down on Earth. So, and let alone, so it's not going to be run or regulated or determined by the government of Canada.
Okay. Well, look, why don't we wrap it up there? I really appreciate you taking some time out of what sounds like a fabulous adventure that you're on, exploring.
It's been my 40 years since undergrad when I had to read Plato's Republic. I wanted to go one day to Greece, and I'm fulfilling my lifelong dream. It's only a short time, but I'm actually saying I'm going to Delos, where the Greek gods, where all have their statues, Zeus and Apollo and all that.
Okay.
So this is really something. It's magical. It's magical.
All right. Well, have fun with it. We miss you. Safe travels back.
Okay,
bye-bye.
thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
Professor Ian Lee. He's with the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University in Ottawa. Yes, it is time for our Newsday panel. Neil Brody is with us, longtime conservative strategist, commentator. Hello, Neil. How are you?
Good afternoon, Rob. How are you doing today?
Yeah. Just great. Thank you. Nick McRoberts, longtime Liberal, used to work for a Liberal cabinet minister with Hill and Knowlton these days. How are you, Nick?
I'm good, Rob. How's it going?
Everything is fine here. Thank you. Now, recent polling would suggest that the Liberals are enjoying a very nice honeymoon, while the Conservatives, support for the Conservatives, by the looks of it, it's down about 10 points since Election Day. Now, look, after Mr. Trudeau left and after Mr. Carney won the Liberal leadership, let's face it, it pretty much became a tie there for a while. I'm just wondering what has happened here. What broke the tie? What would you say? Nick, why don't we start with you on that one?
I think a couple things. I think, the continued efforts of the U.S. administration to encroach on our economic and geographic sovereignty have not ceased. And we continue to combat that. Mark Carney has been able to get in front of that in the news. He's getting in more people's feeds. But at the same time, we're also not in an election. So I think that there's a little bit of stepping back happening. People may not be as interested in Canadian politics right now as they would be in the middle of a campaign. And then couple that with the continued U.S. threats. And you end up in a position where there's a government that's facing a crisis, and governments that are facing crises tend to pull better. So holding on to that is going to be the challenge, but none of this is overly surprising.
Not surprising. Okay. So, a big lead for the Liberals here, according to the polls, and a significant drop in Conservative support. What do you think explains that? What broke this tie, Neil? What would you say?
I'll give you one word, Rob, and that word is sizzle. Carney has a different style than Trudeau, but he's continuing the old Liberal government plan of announcing that at some point in the future there will be an announcement of announcements. Back in March, when without attending Parliament, he assumed the title of Prime Minister, he traveled to Paris and London to meet President Macron and PM Starmer. Great photo op, but no deliverables, no joint press conference, just sizzle. He promised internal free trade by Canada Day or Dominion Day, depending on how you classify it. More sizzle, but now that promise of a deal is being walked back by Carney. He promised that he would fight President Trump in a cage match. More sizzle as the U.S. increases tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. So he's getting a bump on sizzle, but now he has to start delivering the steak.
Okay, well, maybe we see what happens next week, I guess, with the G7. But with for example, the latest Nanos tracking poll has the Conservatives, Neil, down to 33%. Okay, 33%. You're getting pretty close to what I would call the traditional Conservative base. The third of the Canadian electorate that is Conservative and will vote for the Conservative Party in good times and in bad. And I just wonder if you see a party that was polling, in excess of 40% for the better part of 2 years, to see it now basically back down to the support of the base and little else. Are there reasons for the Conservatives to be worried? What would you say?
Listen, I don't think so. As Nick said off the top, there's a bit of election hangover. The people in Canada that watch Question Period and follow politics on a day-to-day basis is small. People are back to their everyday lives, but their everyday lives are unaffordable housing, food prices going up. Some large cities are seeing weekly demonstrations in their downtown core. Sooner or later, the average person is going to want to see some action on those real-world things. And like I said, if Mr. Carney doesn't start delivering on those things, I can see Conservative support starting to rise up again. Okay.
What do you think when you see you're a Liberal here today, Nick, but I'm sure you'd like to weigh in on seeing the Conservatives kind of fall back to earth here, down to 33%, according to at least one well-known pollster. What would you say about that number? What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Neil. Is this election hangover? We start to revert back to kind of a more traditional governing and polling style of Canadian politics. And I think as a Liberal, where that gets worrying is not that the Conservative numbers go down. I'd love to see the Conservative numbers go down. But if the NDP numbers start to rise, right, and we get back more into, where Canadians tend to live, which is almost a three-way split, then the Liberals need to maybe take a step back away from this tact that some have suggested they've been taking in the past few weeks, where we're moving into kind of progressive Conservative territory, and start to look at, are we alienating the NDP voters who may or may not have come over to our side during the campaign?
And maybe they're surprised by some of the moves by Mr. Carney, right?
Well, this is just it, right? Like it's coming across as much less progressive fiscally maybe than it was presented during the campaign.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I would note that the same Nanos tracking, I mean, when you think the NDP barely got 7% of the vote on election night, maybe the NDP is heartened to see its number rise to 12% right now. Okay, we'll be right back, and we'll move on to other things that are in the political mix today with our Newsday panelists. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio. It is our Newsday panel here with Neil Brody, conservative strategist, Nick McRoberts, longtime Liberal with Hill and Knowlton. This is a very interesting news story that's in the Toronto Star today. Visible minorities increasingly backing conservative candidates in federal and provincial elections. Would encourage everyone to read this. What used to be a weak spot for the right is now a growing base, according to researchers with the Toronto, with the University of Toronto, did this study, noting the Conservatives have historically been seen as the party of the white and the wealthy, but until recent years, and in fact now the more diverse the riding, the stronger the Conservative numbers. Very interesting. What do you think might be going on there, Neil?
Well, first and foremost, Rob, I'm definitely not a visible minority. I have to spend a month in the sun to turn from translucent blue to white. But if your listeners will permit me, I'll try to explain my thoughts.
Yeah.
If by visible minority we're talking about new Canadians or their children, I believe the shift to voting Conservative can be explained by the decline of the Canadian promise. In the lead up to the last election, Mr. Poilievre talked about the Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a safe neighborhood in an affordable house. If we're talking again about new Canadians and their children, they've come to Canada for a better economic opportunity to escape religious or ethnic persecution or class discrimination. And I think if you stand back and take a reasonable look at Canada over the last 10 years, economic opportunity is not getting better. There may be an increase in religious and ethnic persecution in our country. There are definitely two classes in our country, which are landowners and non-landowners.
Right.
So if you're talking about new Canadians coming to Canada for this Canadian province, I can see them being open to conservative messaging.
Okay. Just by way of definitions, who are they talking about? Visible minorities. It's not all new Canadians. It's simply people who are non-Caucasian in race or non-white in color as a visible minority, but does not include Indigenous people. That's who these researchers are talking about. And apparently it is proving to be increasingly fertile ground for the Conservative Party. What do you think might be happening there, Nick? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, much the same as Neil. I do not count myself among those groups, and nor would I endeavor to speak for them. But when you look at the last election, right, the Conservative Party grew its base, so it's not surprising that it came from somewhere. And I tend to agree with Neil that until the Trump factor came in, the Conservative Party was the one getting in front of Canadians with messaging about national pride and what it means to be Canadian and the Canadian ideal. And I think that the Liberal Party got a little bit turned away from a sense of what it means to be Canadian, and rather what it means to be, just a citizen broadly. And so I'll be interested to see how these numbers, if they hold or if they change based on, some, as we mentioned, very substantial and tangible threats from the U.S. and the Liberal Party seeming to get back into what it means to be Canadian. But I would tend to agree with Neil's assessment here.
Okay. I also think about the outreach of people like Jason Kenney during the Harper government when they used to call him the Minister of Curry in a hurry. This kind of comes up here. This is in the story. A decades-long concentrated attempt by the Conservative Party to reach racialized communities through efforts such as multilingual ads and attending religious festivals. Conservatives have also recruited a lot of visible minority candidates, including more than the Liberals and the NDP in the most recent federal election, according to a separate study. So it is about It's about outreach. And I think part of that message has been the Liberals have been taking you for granted, and we have a message that could resonate with people in your communities. Yes, Neil? No? Yes?
Sure. Listen,
Sure. Yeah.
we've seen that in the United States in the most recent election. Mr. Trump made no bones about it. He talked directly to African Americans and said, the other party, the Democratic Party, is taking you for granted, and I'm the candidate for economic growth. I will get you better, higher paying jobs, and you'll be able to participate in the American dream. And I think that message is transportable here to Canada as well. The Liberal Party dined out on telling immigrants how great they were in the 90s, and I think that population has been taken for granted. And so, unless you put in the work like Mr. Kenney did, and Mr. Kenney was on the road, 5 days a week for about 6 years, going to every community dinner, every community event, and just showing up means a lot. And it's not wasted time or effort.
Yeah, I just find this really interesting, and I'm a middle-aged white guy just like everybody else on our panel today. In interviews with 50 second-generation Canadians around the GTA, most of whom were either South Asian or Chinese, one of the researchers said that people thought voting Conservative meant becoming more Canadian. It's a way to say, I made it, I belong, I'm not voting like my Liberal Party immigrant parents. I don't think that will be music to the Liberals' ears, Nick.
No, it's not. And it's I don't endeavor very often to be critical of Liberals, but I think one thing that the party needs to remember is that when we talk about minorities or minority groups, we're not just talking about new Canadians that need social supports. We're talking about generations of Canadians that, people my age that can't buy a home, people that are wondering about putting their kids into school programs or into sports. They're looking at the same issues that every other Canadian is looking at, and no wonder they're going to Conservatives, because Conservatives are talking more broadly.
Let's talk a little bit about what Pierre Poilievre said yesterday about immigration. Quote, "We want severe limits on population growth. To reverse the damage the Liberals did to our system, the population has been growing out of control. Our border has been left wide open. This has caused the free flow of drugs, illegal migration, human trafficking, and much worse." What do you make of these remarks from the Conservative leader, Nick McRoberts?
Look, I think that everyone understands that some level of unchecked immigration has contributed to some of the economic challenges that we're seeing in this country, especially when it comes to the quantity of housing that's available, healthcare access, and other things. But I think speaking about it in the way that Poilievre is doing, while frank, only serves to exacerbate the comparison between him and President Trump, especially given everything that we're seeing in the States. It also vilifies immigration, which, immigration is not a black and white issue, and the tone of his comments only seek to paint it as a bad thing, where, this country is built on immigration. And so I think we should be more careful with our words.
Okay, more careful with the words. Does it have too hard an edge to it? I guess that's one of the questions. Neil, what would you say about the comments on immigration from Mr. Poilievre yesterday?
Well, along with Nick, we have to understand right off the top that Canada has a great record of welcoming people from around the world to our great country, and I know that will continue. Like Nick, I do agree that tone matters, but Mr. Poilievre's messaging there is not very far off of Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Carney's messaging about immigration and border issues over the last 6, 7, 8 months. Mr. Trudeau wound up his premiership of Canada by talking about reducing immigration levels. Mr. Carney began his premiership of the country by talking about tightening up the border, cracking down on illegal immigrants, and drugs flowing across the border. And we have to understand that over the last 10 years, 10 years ago, immigration was about 240,000 people per year, and it's been ramping up to about 500,000 people per year over the last 10 years. And that increase was not measured against an increase in housing, in capacity of the medical or education systems. So you've seen rents double, class size in schools grow, wait time for medical procedures grow. So, going back to traditional levels of immigration, around 250,000 immigrants per year, will let the Canadian systems catch up to the population levels we have now. A better tone would be great, but I don't think it's any different than what we've been hearing from the Liberal Party.
Do you expect, maybe we'll make this the last comment, Nick, very quickly, more on immigration from Mark Carney? More restrictions, such as, the likes of which we saw with asylum, for example, for people who have been here more than a year? Should we anticipate more of that very quickly?
I would imagine that we'll see, more of a cap on the levels, and much for the reasons that Neil underlined about economic potential and about realizing the reality that we're in and the role that immigration or excess immigration has played in that. But it's going to be a different tone. Again, it's going to be a tone around that and not a tone around vilifying immigrants.
Okay. All right. We will wrap it up there for today. Great to talk to both of you. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll speak soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Have a good day, Nick.
Neil Brody and Nick McRoberts, our Newsday panel. Talk back just ahead on News Radio.
Talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talk Back. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today's topic is work, but more specifically, working from home, remote work, telework. We want to kick this around for a couple of hours with your help today at 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. Great to be back with you live. Sorry we missed you yesterday. What are the pros and cons of working from home? Have you done it? What did you think of it? What's best for the worker? What's best for the business or the organization? What's best for the community at large? Having more people working at their workplaces, brick and mortar workplaces, or working from home. Feel free to share your opinions on this. We'd love to know your opinions. There are still news stories from time to time about companies and other organizations bringing workers back into the office on a more regular basis, and we want to know what you think of it. The latest well-known Canadian business to do this is Scotiabank, the Bank of Nova Scotia. A couple of days ago, Scotiabank said it would require most staff at the bank to be back in the office 4 days a week. This will be the rule at that employer as of September. So the bank is giving these workers some time to make adjustments over the summer if they need to. And in a statement to the news media, a spokesperson for the bank, and I'm quoting here, this is what they said: working together in person has many benefits. Greater collaboration, higher engagement, more career development opportunities, and a stronger culture and sense of belonging. Working together in person has many benefits: greater collaboration, higher engagement, more career development opportunities, and a stronger culture and sense of belonging. What do you think of that? Think any of that is true? You think some of it might be true? If you work in the office on a fairly regular basis, is there greater collaboration? Is there higher engagement? Are there more opportunities for career advancement? Does it build a stronger work culture and a sense of belonging? Because, Scotiabank seems to think so. What do you think? In making this move, the Bank of Nova Scotia is actually following the lead of the biggest bank in Canada, which is the Royal Bank of Canada, it made a similar announcement just a few weeks ago, saying it wanted its staff back in the office 4 days a week. And again, it would give its workers until September to adjust their own schedules. And at that time, the bank said that a lack of in-person engagement was actually hurting its competitiveness. Now, I would say in employment circles, this is going to be an interesting trend to watch. I mean, these two banks, they are major employers in Canada. The Bank of Nova Scotia has more than 40,000 Canadian employees. And the Royal Bank of Canada has almost 70,000 employees in Canada. So we're talking about like 110,000 employees in Canada. And a lot of them have now been told, you're expected to be in the office 4 days a week. But will that make them better employees? Or is that something that, I don't know, maybe could affect morale at these two big companies in Canada? The percentage of Canadians who work from home, we all know it spiked in the early days of the pandemic, of course. The economy was shut down. At one point back in May of 2020, so more than 5 years ago now, almost 40% of Canadians were working from home. It was almost 40% of Canadians were working from home. That number has been falling every year since. By 2021, it was down to 25%. A year later, it was down to 18%. By 2023, it was down to 14%. And in May of 2024, it was down to 13%. And that's where most people think it is right now. It's around 13% of Canadians are working from home and only from home. And then another 10 to 12%, they're working on some kind of hybrid schedule. Part of the time they work from home, part of the time they're in the office. The largest employer in the country is the government of Canada. Or the 350,000 people work for the government of Canada. And while not all of them work in office towers, there was quite a controversy when the Trudeau government announced that all the government workers who were working from home full time would instead have to be in the office 3 days a week. And many of the workers were not happy about that announcement, and they created Facebook groups to complain, and Reddit forums sprung up filled with unhappy government workers vetting about how they didn't want to go back to the office 3 days a week. And the big public sector unions raised a fuss about it and promised to make trouble for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. They even promised to take the whole matter to court, calling it arbitrary, inflexible, and lacking evidence. Now, there's been some suggestion as well that working from home or remote work or telework or whatever you want to call it is bad for communities. And in fact, there's some belief that among the reasons why big companies like Scotiabank or big employers like the federal government are bringing people back to the office is because they're under pressure from local mayors and city councils who think all of this remote work is bad for their communities, bad for their cities, people not taking public transit in the same numbers that they used to, hurting public transit budgets. Too much office space is sitting vacant. Small businesses, commercial districts are suffering because of a lack of foot traffic. And these local political power players want as many people as possible to be back in the office as often as possible because they feel it's better for their communities. It's better for their cities overall. But is it better for the worker? Is it better for the organization? Is it really better for the community? What would you say? Please have your say. It's been a while since we've talked about this. The pros and cons of working from home. Share your own experiences, please. What's best for the employee? What's best for the organization? What's best for the community? If you work from home, what do you like about it? If you were ordered back to the office, what do you like about that? What don't you like about it? 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that to the call screener. We will make your call a priority. Wednesdays, Talk Back. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio. Talking about remote work, working from home, telework, the pros, the cons of working from home. What's best for the worker? What's best for the organization? What's best for the community at large? 1-833-668-2577. 2577 to share your thoughts. I'd really like to hear from people on this one today. Zul is up first in Calgary today. Hello, Zul.
Hi, Rob. Thank you for
hi
taking
there.
my call.
My pleasure.
Love your show. It's amazing.
Well, thank you.
I
Very kind of you.
applaud Scotiabank and Royal Bank
Okay.
for taking that step.
Why is that?
And more importantly, I think every civil, provincial, and federal employee needs to get back to work on more in-office basis than not.
And why do you believe that?
Because there are several inefficiencies. I know personally some people, I can't mention any names, whose golf games have improved tremendously since they're working from home. And they're just not collaborating. They're not working together. If you want to get a permit from one place, and then if they have to talk to another colleague of theirs, he might not be available at that time since he's working from home. He's walking the dog. He's doing this and that. There has been a lot of that going on, and I seriously believe it'll help our mental health. It'll help our economy with people who own small coffee shops and eateries in downtown where the office buildings are.
Sure.
And then overall, I think it'll help. It'll definitely make some people upset whose worst days are the 2 days of week that they have to go into work. But but I think it'll overall really help everybody in one sense or the other.
So, Zul, do you think people are less productive if they're working from home than they are if they're actually in the physical workplace?
You know, I'm not going to paint everybody with the same brush. I don't think everybody's like that. But a lot of the people that I personally know, yes, they're just goofing off. Simple as that.
Just
I'm
goofing
sorry
off.
to say that. I hope to God nobody recognizes me here. What am I talking about? But yeah, especially the city, the provincial, and the federal workers. They're not, unfortunately. It's
and you think it's a good move by these big banks.
People.
Okay. All right, Zul. Thank you. You've got us off to a great start. You've hit on kind of all the hot button things there, I think. Let's go to Nova Scotia. Stephen is up next.
Wow,
hi there, Stephen.
That was a lot of hot buttons.
Yes. Hi there.
I'm actually working from home because I'm on a medical exemption.
Okay.
But the other side of the coin on collaboration is, as you noticed, I work in Nova Scotia. My entire team works out of downtown Montreal.
Oh, really? Okay.
Kind of hard to collaborate with them.
Yes.
Because I'm not
So
allowed to
how
travel.
do you collaborate in that circumstance?
We do it over video. I work for a slightly large telco. I won't say the name, but we have the largest video conferencing service in the country. So you know, I've on my desk I've got 3 monitors. One's a widescreen with a video camera on top. So but it's not personal. So there's tons of conference calls sitting in the desk. Kind of painful in respect is that. But there's during the pandemic, a lot of the people I work with and around me at my desk at my office, they all retired. So my water cooler chat went from 100 to 0 in 2 years.
Right.
So it's even if I go into the office, I don't even have a desk anymore. I find a hoteling desk if there's one open, and I sit there and I work on doing the exact same thing I'm doing at home, which makes absolutely zero sense. My wife's company, everyone is back in the office, like everyone. My sister-in-law works for the provincial government. She's back in the office 5 days a week. She would rather be in the office 5 days a week because she's a very social person. For me, there's nobody I know to socialize with. So, you know, A, I'm on medical leave, and I'm not supposed to be going into the office. But B, if I wasn't even on medical leave, I would find it really hard to go into the office because I'm just sitting at a desk doing the exact same thing I do at home with all of the people I've known for the last 20-plus years. They're all gone.
Right.
You know,
how is your Do you think your productivity has changed at all, or
Actually,
do you think
I'm more productive?
You think you're more
working
productive?
From home.
Okay.
So
explain
my wife
that.
leaves for the office at 6:30 in the morning.
Yes.
Guess when I log into my computer? If you
6:30,
say 6:30,
probably.
you're right.
Yeah.
When do I log out? Between about 4:30 or 5.
Wow. Long day.
I spent 10 minutes. I made a pastrami sandwich, and I ate it at my desk while I was working. I'm actually doing more work. I'm actually more productive. There's less distraction, but socially, mentally, it takes a heck of a hit on you, to be honest with you, Rob.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting. It kind of mirrors my own personal experience, actually. Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you. Yeah, 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. Working from home, your experiences, please.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about remote work, telework, working from home. Have you done it? What did you think of it? Are you still doing it? Were you ordered back to the office? How's that going? What are the positives and negatives of working from home? 1-833-668-2577. Louise up next on Talkback. Hello, Louise.
Oh, hi there. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine, Louise. What's your opinion, please? What's your experience?
Well, I feel bad for people that work from home, and especially new young people in the workforce. They're missing so much social interaction. They're missing, how do you build a team when you're sitting at your kitchen table or in your basement office? I just feel mentally, socially, it's really, really not a great, healthy thing. And from a management of a company perspective, how do people's bosses or management gauge how well an employee is doing if they don't even physically see them, I mean, it would be job dependent, but anyway, that's my thought. I just think it's not a healthy situation for people in general, and especially young people.
Well, I find that really interesting because when they study this, what remote workers like about the idea of working from home, and they feel that they have a better work-life balance, for example, and that going to the office every day and coming home, being stuck in traffic, all of these things, that actually is detrimental to their health and well-being. What would you say to that?
Well, the couple of people, I live in a condo townhouse complex, and the couple of younger people that I know that are working from home, how come I see them walking their dog at 10 in the morning? And I don't, yes, it's a better work-life balance, but I'm not sure that the work is getting done.
Right. It maybe they're concentrating too much on life and not enough on work. Maybe. Right.
Possibly. Yeah.
Okay.
So, anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. I love work. I worked in an office building my whole life. Got up at 5:45 every day for 40 years. Looked forward to seeing people. Like, I'm a social person, but I looked forward to seeing people and having team meetings in person. And then you get friends. I think working with people is a really, really good thing.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you so much. Let's go to AJ is up next in Calgary today. Hi, AJ.
Hi, Rob. It's
hi, AJ.
calling from
Well,
Calgary.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. What are your experiences?
I don't think it's worth working from home for some people. Like, my wife works from home, and I think she barely works. She doesn't like it when I say that. And like, even right now, she started work at 7 a.m. and she's already done, but she should be at work till 3. And I don't think it's fair because I got to go into work physically.
Yes. Okay.
But her job allows her to work from home. And plus, she's a very social person. So by the time I come home, she just wants to talk.
Because she's been alone all day, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
okay.
That's my thought.
All right. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. We'll stop here. We're well underway, though. Hour number 1 of Talkback. Working from home. Telework, remote work. 5 years after so many people started doing it, what are the pros, the cons? What are your experiences? What's best if you're a worker, being at home, being in an office-like setting? What's best for the organization? What's best for the city that you live in? All kinds of angles to explore with this one. We hope you'll take part on Talkback.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now. Hello. 1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Remote work, working from home, telework. Have you done it? What were your experiences? What did you think of it? What were the positives and negatives? Is it a good thing working from home? Brian in Halifax. What do you think, Brian? Thanks for calling.
Yeah, hi. So I've got a couple of different perspectives. For me personally, I teach. So during the pandemic, I hated teaching from home and the remote learning. It was just painful. But I teach more of like a hands-on kind of class, like wood shop and stuff. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to translate that into online learning.
Sure.
But my previous girlfriend and my current girlfriend, they both work from home. And I can tell you both of them were well, my previous girlfriend was happier. My current girlfriend definitely is happier. And yes, there's definitely something to the whole social aspect. However, I think that if the people who are all work in offices and, maybe some other things, and if they sat down and thought about it themselves, are you really 100% productive every minute of every single day that you work, right? So complaining about oh, I see this person out walking their dog. Well, you don't know the circumstance. Maybe they have set break times that they can do that. They also could be, I work, you get, and from the people I know, I work harder for these times so I can kind of ease off a little bit for a few minutes and take a rest. Just like people in offices do. I know a lot of people in offices that, if you talk to them honestly, no, they're not 100% productive every single minute of every single day. But then they'll turn around and be like, oh, these people, I see them, they're looking at their social media and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I was really surprised actually about all the government people going back in, because I thought for certain once the bean counters saw all the money they're saving off of the rent and everything like that, it'd be like, oh, geez, well, if we do more remote work, we don't have to pay this rent. We don't have to, do all this other stuff. I thought this was that the Pandora's box is open, the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah.
People aren't going to want to do that. And I mean, clearly, obviously, they don't. A lot of people don't.
Now, the women, I'm curious, the women that have been in your life who have worked from home, you said they were both happier. What was it, do you think, that made them happier about it?
Not having to drive in traffic.
Not rush hour traffic, right? Okay.
Yeah. One of them, her boss was like a super micromanager, so not being around them 24/7 was a lot better. And it's just, there's a little bit of there is a little bit more freedom in that respect, and I think there are people who do respect their job and treat that carefully. I mean, every job has people that threw the pooch as much as they can during the workday.
Right. Yes.
And
sure.
What was the other thing I was thinking about was oh geez, now it's gone completely out of my head. It was
That's okay. That happens to me all the time as we age. It's to be expected. Look, I really loved our conversation. Thank you, Brian.
Right,
I'm going to move along. Okay, bye-bye. Barry also calling from Nova Scotia today. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah, it's Rob here. Yeah, that's okay.
I can
Thank you.
barely hear you.
Well, go ahead, sir. I hear you just fine.
I don't understand, let's say in the middle of January, getting up early, going outside, cleaning the snow off your car, sitting in traffic for a half an hour and going up on the 10th floor of an office building and sitting in front of a computer doing the same thing you can do from home. It creates traffic. Right now in Halifax, there's a big debate about bicycle lanes and the interference in traffic, but nobody is even mentioning, let's reduce our traffic. And so working from home certainly reduces traffic. It saves, it saves a lot of the environmental concerns. For example, in some cases, you're heating an empty house all day and you're heating an empty building all night. So I think the day will come when we smarten up about this working from home, and the downtowns and the big office buildings will be a thing of the past.
Okay. Plus, if you're stuck in that Halifax rush hour traffic, which I hear is getting worse and worse and worse with each passing month, and you're sitting there and you're idling and you're spewing greenhouse gases into the air and all those emissions and everything. So you're right. There's an environmental aspect to it as well, right?
Yeah. If you look at all the forest fires we're having now, earlier than normal, it's just something has got to change. Either the federal government has got to take over, and they're still. I called you one time about the water bombers they're building in Calgary.
Yes.
And there was all kinds of orders from Europe and other countries, but not one from Canada. Well, finally, Manitoba has ordered 3, but they'll have to wait until I think it's 2000.
Yes. I thought of you when I saw that story. There was a news story I think it was last week. It was in the news that provinces are trying to place orders with that company in Calgary, but there's a backlog of them now, right?
Yeah, Manitoba won't get theirs until 2032.
Yes, I did see that story, and I thought somebody just called my show about that just the other day, and sure enough, it was you, Barry. So there you go. But thank you so much. Yeah, great to hear from you again today. Talk back, 1-833-668-2577 as we talk about working from home. The pros, the cons, and your experiences, please. Most welcome. This is News Radio.
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking about working from home today. Remote work, telework, the pros, the cons, your experiences. 1-833-668-2577. Sean is up next, calling from Calgary today. Hello, Sean.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm just fine, Sean. What are your experiences?
So currently I work from home, and I'm finding it really beneficial. I just, it gives me the time I need to get all my work done, as well as doing all the stuff that needs to be done around the house. Because although I've never worked in a traditional office setting, I know people who have, and they come home from work after being in traffic, and I think it's just absolutely ridiculous, that these big banks want people to work at the office. The only reason I see this happening is because they want a little more control over their employees, honestly.
Okay.
Because, like I said, a lot of people get their stuff done. Like that one caller who said his girlfriend or wife was done work, started at 7 a.m. when she wanted to, finish work when all her stuff was done, and she had the rest of the day to get whatever else she needs to be done. I think it creates a better work-life balance, and I think just everything is more beneficial for the worker in that case.
Right. So the Bank of Nova Scotia, as I outlined this, the Bank of Nova Scotia said, this announcement came out a couple of days ago, and it's just weeks after the Royal Bank of Canada. These two big banks employ 110,000 people in Canada, and they're bringing people back. They say you'll have until September. If you need to make any adjustments, you have to be in the office 4 days a week. 4 days a week. And in a statement, a spokesperson for the bank said it believes working in person offers greater collaboration, higher engagement, more career development opportunities, and a stronger culture and sense of belonging. So a stronger culture, sense of belonging, collaboration, engagement, career opportunities. What do you think about that?
I think the way to address all those problems at once is by having more dynamic management. Because it sounds to me like that, you know, whoever's making these decisions, they can make all those things happen in a work from home setting. It's just going to take some more effort and research and, you know, like figuring stuff out, which I don't think a lot of places want to do, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, with you, you don't have to. You can share as much as you want. With you, I mean, do you work for yourself? Do you work for a big company? What line of work are you in that you can work from home?
I do like a tech kind of thing.
Like tech support sort of thing. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what would you say are some of the? I mean, you've talked a lot about the upsides. What are some of the downsides? I mean, is there anything you don't like about it?
The only thing I would say, yeah, I guess there is a lack of social contact. You know, I'm just kind of
right.
I have a little desk set up in my basement, and that's where I work. But like, I mean, just like like I said, I've never worked in a traditional office setting, but I have worked in other places with other co-workers, and you know, there are some co-workers you just don't want to see, and you don't have to see. Right?
Okay. Yeah. But from time to time, you do miss kind of the social aspect of it.
Yeah, there is. I mean, if there are co-workers that you really get along with, you can make arrangements outside of work to hang out and stuff, and especially it works even better because you know what you guys' schedules are like.
Sure thing. Okay. All right, Sean, thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Back to Halifax we go. Noah is up next. Hi, Noah.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good, Noah. What are your thoughts on working from home?
My thoughts on this are just in the fact that we've seen such a increase of security spike, like in the fact that so much security clearance breach in all the sectors of just from even Nova Scotia Power, Halifax Water, basically everything. Everyone's running on a very fragile internet security system working from home. I don't think it's a safe option for all these people that are communicating under banking information, SIN numbers, or any kind of email system. I think it's a very unsafe system for people to be working from home.
Right. So you're worried about internet security, privacy breaches. And we hear about those, big privacy breaches all the time in the news. You had, as you say, a big one at the electricity utility in Nova Scotia recently, right? Hundreds of thousands of clients had their personal information compromised.
Yes, we have. And this is going to affect hundreds of thousands of people for years to come. And we have no idea where these SIN numbers are going to go and what banking information they've taken. I think it is a horrible idea to work from home because there is no security in anybody's home Wi-Fi unless they're taking proper procedures to secure their internet, but which most people don't, and which most people, it's a hard thing for them to do. So I think that we should eradicate working from home and send everyone back to working in their companies where there's a secure internet connection.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you. Noah bringing up the whole internet security angle. Very good angle to bring up as well. Especially, you think about banking information. We have so many people in the federal government. They're still working from home 2 days a week. And think of all the personal information that a federal government employee at the Canada Revenue Agency or what have you would have on you. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio. Working from home today here on Talkback. Mike in Kincardine. Thanks for calling, Mike. Hi there.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for calling, Mike. Go ahead.
I just like to, I've been working, I just recently retired 4 months ago. I worked from home for the past 8 years for a major multinational company. We did a lot of work. I was a corporate project manager. I worked with teams all over the world, in Europe, India, Brazil, United States, sir. What I found about working from home was we got a lot of things done because in our organizations, we have people who work from a lot of places, Rob.
Okay.
So what I found is we were more productive. It expedited my retirement because they wanted me to come back to work 4 days a week. And when I was promoted, it was under the understanding that I could work remotely because I was near retirement, and that's how I agreed to do it, right? And then all of a sudden they changed the game plan. Well, I had worked remotely with teams from India, Brazil, South America, Mexico, USA, Asia, all over the world on major corporate projects.
Okay,
and we got along fine. Now, I will say it depends on the type of work you do. If you're a production worker and you need to be on that assembly line or at a mill or a steel mill or whatever, you need to be there. But if you're in IT, purchasing, or accounting, you don't need to be there. And to address the social issues,
yes,
I met my team a couple times with, by having events maybe once or twice a month type of thing. So when I retired, I told them it was because you're bringing me back to work, and I don't see why I have to drive into work to talk to someone in India at 3 a.m. in the morning because of the time shift difference. Right. And I was very productive. I was very productive. Well, we got 5 major projects done, right? And the teams were productive. We were talking to each other at all hours of the day, all hours because of the time shifts. Now, Noah brought up an important point there. And I may I say with respect, he doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. Most organizations have VPNs, encrypted transmissions. They also have things like you're on your PCs and stuff. Your files are scrambled. Your email is scrambled. People, even in my organization, they were monitoring the number of keystrokes people were doing to see if they were actually working.
Okay.
Now,
so there are solutions, right?
Yes, there are solutions. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I worked on stuff where I required security clearances and stuff like that. And believe you me, there are solutions, and people just don't broadcast stuff wide open in the internet. So I found then a month later after I retired, Rob, guess what happened? They came back to me and they said, would you like to work on contract for us? And you can work remotely. But if you're a full-time employee, you can't work remote. You can't work remotely.
Well, isn't that interesting?
But if I'm on contract, I can. So I had a very good experience.
We're right out of time. We're right out of time. I wish we had more time. That's hour number 1 of Talkback. The news is next.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. We've been kicking around the idea of remote work today. Working from home, telework, the pros and cons of working from home. What sparked our interest in this today is this news from these big Canadian banks. They're telling people they have to be in the office 4 days a week starting in September. That's the order from the Bank of Nova Scotia and the Royal Bank, 2 of the largest employers in the country, more than 100,000 Canadians working for those 2 banks. Now, there was just a news report out a few days ago that said one of the big banks in the United States, JP Morgan Chase, ordered its employees back to the office 5 days a week. It did that some time ago, and the report suggested that it took a toll on morale, which is interesting because Scotiabank in its statement said one of the reasons it's doing this is because they think it will be better for the employees. They think morale will be better. They'll be more engaged. There will be better teamwork, all this stuff. But when JP Morgan Chase did this in the United States, employees at that bank weren't very happy about it, about being back in the office full time. It had been 3 days a week, and then they made it 5 days a week. They surveyed their employees a little later, and the lowest scores were for health and well-being and for work-life balance. In other words, workers thought being in the office 5 days a week was impacting their health and well-being and was bad for their work-life balance. But we would like to know what you think. Nicole is up next, calling from Calgary today. Hello, Nicole.
Hi.
Hi, Nicole. What do you think?
So I'm a supervisor at a social services agency. I guess as a supervisor, I feel like there's no difference between people working remotely or working on site. And to be honest, I don't care what they're doing while they're at home working. I don't care if they're walking the dog, if they're cooking, doing laundry. I really don't care as long as the work is getting done. And we are able to see, if the quality of the work is the same, if they're getting things done on time. So no, I guess for me as a supervisor, they're doing just as much fooling around on site as they are at home anyways, to be honest. There's been lots of issues like that where people are on their personal devices at work. They're booking vacations, they're doing online shopping, they're running personal errands when they're supposed to be doing work errands. I think that is the person themselves, their own character. That employers have to pay attention to. Sorry, but no. Overall, to me, I just want the work done, and I would say it's the same for most places. I think it's about control. I think someone else called in and they think it's just about, they feel like they have more control over the employees if they're there on site. I don't think that's been the case.
So, for example, I cited this. Scotiabank says greater collaboration, higher engagement, more career development opportunities. I found that one interesting. There are more career development opportunities. Come into the office, you might get a promotion. Stronger culture and a sense of belonging. But you say, well, I'm a supervisor. I don't care if they're whatever, in their pajamas or if they're in the office. I just want the work to be done.
I want the work to be done, and you want your employees to be happy. I think big companies are thinking, yes, they're going to be happy if they're all here together and we're a team. And do most people really think that way, or do they just want to get their work done and get the paycheck? Yes, they want to do a good job, but we don't all need to be best friends and be family, and they just want to do the work. So if people are telling you, if the employees are telling you that they're happier at home, then they need to be listening to that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your perspective. Really appreciate that. To Timothy up next in Calgary as well today. Hi, Timothy.
Hello, good afternoon, Rob.
Yes, Timothy, what's your opinion?
So I am of the opinion that it's not only just about control. There is a secondary economy that feeds off of people being at the workplace. There are food court workers, there are cleaners, there is the management companies that have invested millions of dollars into, say, real estate downtown. So I just take the banks for example too. They've built those infrastructure. So why should people just work from home? Now, I would support more of a hybrid workplace, maybe not full time in the office. But I think there's a balance. Now, people should not just think of it only from one point of view of, they're trying to control us or monitor. That's just my opinion.
So we should be looking at it as well from, say, in this case, the viewpoint of the big bank. It's made all of these investments into all of these assets, and maybe for the best of the organization, it's best to have people in the workplace environment.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's
what you think?
More often. Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Let's go to Brandon is in Vulcan County, Alberta. Brandon.
Hey, how you doing, Rob? Can you hear me?
I'm good. Great to hear from you. Share your thoughts, please.
They're pretty basic. Just going to talk on two of them. The two of them, one is accountability. This whole, everything I know about the workplace nowadays is a lack of. So, buddy's sitting at his computer. What you got underneath on? What's going on underneath that table? no accountability. Show up how you want. Are you drunk? We don't even know. Puts a good face on. You know what I mean?
Okay.
There's none of that. Real close, personal, eye to eye assessments being done. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. How is this employee doing? How is this employee doing? Is this a productive employee? Is this a struggling employee? If they're struggling, why are they struggling? What's going on there? Should I pull them aside? Maybe have a chat. Just, find out a little bit more, perhaps.
That's one of them.
Okay.
And the second thing that comes to me, and I see this a lot. I've been in lunchrooms my entire life. I'm a tradesman by trade, but everyone's got a job to do. You do your job. I'm in a bay. I'm in that bay. Do my thing, and I look forward to going to the lunchroom. And it's the social aspect that people are missing nowadays, and we're creating some weird people, weird children.
Okay.
They're unable to hold up in a lunchroom conversation,
Right.
I think we're going to really pay. We're going to pay for this. I think we're going to
isolation.
Create a bunch of weird people.
Social isolation is taking a toll on people.
It is, yeah. And they can't handle confrontation. They got high anxiety. These are all things that have plagued society right now. You'll hear about it. You are hearing about it. Everyone you know has got anxiety. Love saying that. I joke with it. I joke about it. Get away from me. I might catch the anxieties from you. You're too young.
Right,
Bottom line is,
I've never heard that one.
That's what I got lots. But what we're talking about here is simply just creating well-rounded humans. And right now we ain't doing it. A lot of our lunchrooms you go into, including mine most of the time, is people are just plugged into the matrix, man. It's a quiet lunchroom now. But I do remember 10, 15 years ago, that's where you had to hold your own, man. You had to defend yourself, right. And it's all about hammering on each other and having fun and laughing and birthday parties. You got celebrations, you're high-fiving, you're slap-assing, you're enjoying life, man.
Okay.
None of those things happen at home. Brutal.
Gotcha. Thank you. Not a fan. Sure. Brandon in Vulcan County. Thank you so much. And boy, you really hit on a lot of hot topics there. Maybe we can build on that throughout hour number 2 here of Talkback on News Radio. John in Halifax up next as we continue our conversation today on remote work, working from home. Hello, John.
Hi, Rob. How are you today?
I'm good, John. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Oh, that's good.
I just wanted to comment on a previous caller who was talking about the security risks associated with work from home.
Yeah.
The reality of industry practice is that if you're going to be working from home, you're using either an issued or a compensated for by your employer device, and you have to be connected to a VPN the majority of the time to even access the file systems for your company. Obviously, there are some gaps in that. Some companies might have a weaker cyber policy than others. But in general, if your file system is compromised, it's not really a factor of work from home. It's more of a factor of your actual company's policies.
Okay. So you think much of the security concerns of our previous NOAA in Halifax was saying that, yeah, you think a lot of that is overblown?
I think it would be a little misinformed. I understand that it sounds good that, it's you're going off their home Wi-Fi, but a virtual private network encrypts all the traffic between, and most companies, especially those that are more cyber-oriented, are going to have a pretty robust security policy. They're not going to let you just connect from your personal home PC to their file infrastructure. That's just not how it works.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Again, clearing that up for us, John. Good to hear from you. Not the first to challenge that notion from NOAA. NOAA was saying that nobody should be working from home. It's just too... The internet network is just too fragile. Information could be too easily compromised. But it's good to get both sides of that out there. And it would appear as though one is overtaking the other there. Andrew in Calgary. Hello, Andrew.
Hey there, Rob.
Hi,
Happy
Andrew.
Tuesday to you.
Wednesday. Wednesday. Yeah. Good to hear from you.
I'm missing a day already.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess first off, I agree with some of these other callers. I do think it's an exercise of control and trying to establish factory mentality on a corporate world.
Okay.
And I also agree that there is the job needs to be suited for remote work, and not every job is. And I hope that's pretty clear and obvious to most corporations and businesses, whether it is or not. But I would want to ask, the people in charge, the CEOs and whatnot, exactly what is your goal here? Do you really intend to create a situation where your employees succeed and thrive in your company? And if the case is yes, then I think there's a lot of support and data being gathered about neurodivergence minds and their ability to contribute either non-laterally or just dynamically to a company. And there's a great deal of success in tapping into those minds, but they cannot operate in a scenario or an environment that they're so used to creating, these big office buildings or rows and rows of cubicles or what have you. And it's something worth considering. If you really want someone to thrive, create an environment for them to thrive in.
Okay. Such as what if it's going to be an in-office culture, what kind of environment are you talking about then?
So assuming, of course, that we do have, call them normal people, if you will, quote unquote, that can handle an office or a cubicle or whatnot, a more neurodivergent mind will need a different space, or possibly a quieter space, or if they collaborate, it'll be a small collaborative area, not a big open space. I recently attended a talk on designing office spaces for the neurodivergent in attempts to create environments that help these minds excel and thrive and contribute to their company.
And please forgive my unfamiliarity. I'd have never even heard of this term, a neurodivergent mind. What is a neurodivergent mind? What do you mean by that?
I think, it's sort of a blanket term. You get minds like ADHD or OCD or on the autism spectrum, and they just kind of put it all under the blanket of neurodivergency. It's not your neurotypical mind. It's divergent. It could be any number of things would fall under that.
Okay. And, some people are neurodivergent. Okay. Let's use you. And they can't thrive in an office environment.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying.
It becomes hard for them to output at the same level as a neurotypical mind.
Okay.
But
very
there are
interesting.
benefits to having them there. So.
Right. It's not that they don't have something useful or productive to contribute, which is the end goal of it, the organization. Okay. Understood, sir. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, I learned something new today. Neurodivergent. Okay. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. Popular topic today. Glad to see that. Riley up next in Calgary. Hello, Riley. Hi, Riley. Riley's not there. Okay, let's go to Kevin in Halifax today. Hello, Kevin.
Morning or good afternoon, Rob.
Yes, hi there, Kevin.
My point would be that it's to be a happy medium, whether it's 2 days in and 3 days out, or the opposite. Because if you're bringing it to the table by working in the office, then what stops them from hiring somebody in Bangladesh to do your job?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And that's the point. You got Bell Canada, and in Halifax here, Nova Scotia, you got Nova Scotia Power. Call customer service, and somebody in the Philippines picks up the phone.
Okay.
So they've shopped those jobs out. So if your point is that working at home is best for you, and you're not bringing anything to the table by being work at salary, you can work across the world, but somebody else will do your job, and you'll be sad day when they send you your layoff papers.
Right. In other words, you think if somebody is really insistent that they need to work from home, or they want to work from home, that they're better off working from home, then maybe they're making themselves more vulnerable actually to being replaced.
Absolutely, that's what my thought would. They're setting themselves up for a corporate change, and they get a letter one day, and corporate says, I'm sorry, your job has been eliminated, and they hire 300 people in Bangladesh or the Philippines to do your work.
Okay, very interesting. I was told, it was actually my father suggested this because I work from home a lot, and My father said, well, if you're going to work from home, you may want to go into the office anyway, every now and then, just so they remember who you are. Or you might get lost in the mix there.
Absolutely.
So,
I agree 100%. Your
Yeah,
father
that's
must
why
have
I
been from
found-
Cape Breton.
Yes, he is, as a matter of fact. But it's interesting, though, that this Scotiabank thing said, well, more career development opportunities. This is one of the reasons why we think working in the office is better. There may be more career development opportunities. And I thought, well, I wonder if that's kind of a warning to people. If you're not in the office all the time, there may be limited prospects for advancement within our organization, the Bank of Nova Scotia. Now, that's just my interpretation of it, but I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I can tell you from personal experience is that the big banks have a very short window when it comes to employees about farming out jobs, and we've seen them in the past ship their jobs all over the world. So if they don't think that you're, being productive or you're bringing something to you're only a number.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your call.
You
we
have a
will
great
stop
day.
here. You too. We will stop here. We will bring you the very latest breaking news. And then get right back to your phone calls. There are 2 lines available there now. Lots of time to fit you in on Talk Back today as we talk about remote work, working from home, telework, whatever you want to call it. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What are the pros and cons? Share your thoughts, please.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about working from home today, remote work. Pros, the cons, your experiences. 1-833-668-2577. 2 of Canada's biggest banks ordering their employees back to work 4 days a week. They'll give them till September to make the change. Let's go to Vern is up next in Calgary. Hello, Vern.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, Vern. What's up? What's your opinion?
I've been working out of home for quite a few years now, and I'm very successful at what I do. And it was kind of a hard transition to leave a shop of 30 employees and 10,000 square feet to think that it's going to run properly. You get paranoid.
Okay.
But everything worked out well. So I'm still working out of home, and I'm going to stay working out of home. I'm an inventor, and I have several patents, and I'm in snowmaking. Yeah, snowmaking.
Cool.
I make snowmaking equipment for around the world. I know Ontario very well. Caledon, Osler, all those guys. Blue Mountain. I'm in Calgary, and I started in Panorama and went to Ski Louise, worked for Terry Lock, and now I'm on my own. And like I said, I was paranoid that something was going to go astray. And it didn't. My wife looked after the company. I actually retired on my 40th birthday, October 1st, 2001. That's my 40th. So I've been working at home since then. But it's great.
Okay. Okay.
What
do you like about it? What do you like about it?
Well, I'm sitting here on my deck right now, working at home. I moved my machine shop in here. I have a full machine. I'm a certified machinist welder by trade, tool and die. So I moved my machine shop into my place. I have a big place, and it's sitting on the deck. And I couldn't be happier. I got an 8-foot low table and a couch, and I'm just sitting here enjoying life. Like I said, I haven't really worked hard. I'm I'm on ACE now because I'm severely handicapped.
Okay.
So this worked out not too bad at all.
Okay.
But the stress when I had my company here in town and 30 employees working 24/7, supplying snow guns to American Ski Company, was just dreadful.
Right.
I have no stress now. None.
Less stress. Okay.
And so I'm strictly into R&D and work with APEGA, the Association of Professional Engineers and Geologists of Alberta. I have engineers that do all my work, and they work out of home. They all work out of home. Engineers can work out of home. Not a big deal.
Very
but
cool.
When you have to have hands-on in a machine shop, well, that's a big burden. It was for me.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I'm into a lot of different things, and I was into working for Global Thermal Electric, building hydrogen fuel cells for them 20 years ago. But hydrogen is coming back into Calgary right now. It's a big topic with.
Very interesting. A conversation for another day, perhaps. But I'm glad it's worked out for you. It sounds like you've set yourself up for a pretty nice life there. Thank you so much, Vern. It's such an interesting call. That's good. Good for you. Good for you, Vern. Diego also in Alberta today. Hello, Diego.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Sorry.
How are you doing?
You get asked that way too much.
That's okay.
You run a great show. I really, really appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your call today.
You betcha. So my life was corporate world, software development. So to me, I would say working from home obviously heavily relies, as it's been said, on what you do. So I worked with very, very smart software engineers that actually didn't like to be in the office because they're introverts and they don't socialize. So there was never you need to socialize and make sure your team is happy. These guys just want to get their job done and then get home and do whatever they do. To me, managing all these projects was, obviously you have to have a happy team and the team morale needs to be high, but you don't need to be in the office to have that. Like the technology now with video conferencing, everything is so good that you can do team socials, after work online, which we had to do with COVID and all that. But I think going to the office is a waste of money. You got to pay for parking, gas. You got to wear your suit. Then you're paying $40 a coffee a day, and then you go for lunch. In some cases, you have a pint of beer, and then so the afternoon is actually not that resourceful because productive. Because when you're at home, you're certainly not going to crack a beer for lunch by yourself. So
right. Well, yeah.
Anyway, those are all
in theory. Right. Okay.
My,
very good. Very good. Yeah. No, it's great stuff. Thank you so much, Diego. Yeah, good to hear from you today, and thank you for those kind words about our broadcasts that we do every day here. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talk Back. We're talking about remote work, working from home, the pros, the cons, and getting your experiences.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Continuing our discussion today on work from home, Jared is up next. Jared in Calgary. Hello, Jared.
Hey, Rob. So
hey,
just
Jared.
listening to this, just occurred to me that, usually I'm a field worker. I've been in leadership roles. I don't like sitting at a desk.
Okay.
But one thing that I noticed was that if I had the same kind of scope of work as somebody else that got to work at home, and I had to go to the office, guaranteed I'm going to be doing more work. Just making sure that the office is still ran properly. And on top of that, I'm going to have to be driving more.
Yeah.
It takes more time out of my day driving to and from that.
Yes.
Might be not compensated for. So they got to figure something out to actually pay these people more, or else they're going to have a lot of people working at home and not wanting to go to the office.
right? Or not wanting to work there at all, right? And there could be, yeah.
Oh yeah, if I found out somebody was making about the same as me and I had to go to the office every single day, I'd start looking for another job.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, this big bank in the United States, J.P. Morgan Chase, said they had 3 days a week. You have to be in the office 3 days a week. And then they said you have to be in the office 5 days a week. So basically, we're going back to the old days. You're going to have to come in 5 days a week. And then they surveyed their employees. What do you think about this? And the lowest scores on the company's survey, health and well-being and work-life balance. And it was in the media that we're talking about a big, powerful Wall Street bank here. What they anticipated was what's called a wave of quiet quitting. I don't know if you've ever heard that term. Quiet quitting. You know what that is? Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of looking for another opportunity.
Well, it's, quiet quitting is workers who will do the bare minimum. Like they may be in the office, but they're not putting everything they have into it. Their heads are somewhere else and they're more or less disengaged from the work environment. And they won't work any extra hours. They won't go above and beyond. They're in the office. They're put in their time. And then whatever time they're off, 3, 4 o'clock, like they're out of there. They haven't quit physically. They haven't quit officially, but quietly in their heads or in their minds, they've quit. Like that's called quiet quitting. And that's what this big bank was worried about when they ordered people back 5 days a week. They still haven't revisited that policy, but that was certainly one of the things they were worried about.
Well, why don't they add incentives for people to actually, because there's no reason that somebody works at home and makes the same amount of money as somebody who has to show up all the time doing almost the same type of work. Right?
Yeah. They just felt it was better for their corporate culture that people are there. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, I'll leave that with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jared. Yeah, good to hear from you. Garrett in Lethbridge today. Hello, Garrett.
Hello. How's it going?
Just fine, Garrett. What do you think about remote work or working from home? Any experience with it?
So I've been working from home for a few years now. It started with COVID with the previous employer. So it was almost by force there, but that ended up being great for work-life balance, and I continued with remote work even after restrictions were lifted and things like that. It allowed me to move back to my hometown. I was working in Calgary at the time, and so from a cost of living perspective, just by virtue of going remote and moving to out of the hustle and bustle of Calgary, it basically gave myself an effective raise. Moreover, work-life balance is improved. I was able to take care of our dogs, which is kind of my favorite part, I suppose. One of the drawbacks, I suppose, no change from a productivity standpoint in terms of day-to-day tasks and things like that. But by virtue of not being in the office, with my previous employer and starting there, I had a rapport built up with coworkers already. Right. And then I transitioned to a new career that was full-time remote as well. So, whole new work environment, whole new set of people. I don't have that rapport built up. And working remotely, you don't get that same degree of in-office interaction.
Yes.
Which can make your job a little bit difficult here and there. But I'd say generally it's a great thing to have if the option's available to you.
Okay. Do you miss it, the kind of the socialization aspect of being in a workplace environment, like a brick and mortar workplace environment?
To an extent. So I try to strike a balance. I will travel up to our office, once or twice a month, just to attend meetings and then some other kind of in-person activities, and to, work on that rapport piece. I can't remember the previous name of somebody else who had called in, but they had mentioned that I think it was CIBC or something where, you might potentially forego job opportunities and things like that. Right. That is something that's in the back of my mind, but doesn't seem to be material, at least in my line of work.
Right. That was at the Scotiabank. Said it issued a statement. Because it issued a statement a few days ago because it made the announcement that it expects their workers to be back in the office 4 days a week. Working together in person has many benefits: greater collaboration, higher engagement, more career development opportunities. It said a stronger culture and a sense of belonging. And I thought about that: more career development opportunities. If you're actually in the office, they know who you are. Your career will develop better. Seemed to me is what they were suggesting.
See that being possible, right? You're more visible in your contributions and accomplishments are more front and center.
Yeah. That stood out for me. Thank you so much for keying in on that. Be right back with some closing thoughts and a few more calls on Talkback as we talk about working from home today. This is News Radio. Let's take another call here on working from home. Riley in Calgary. Hello, Riley.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for accepting my call today.
Yeah, anytime.
I just wanted to share my experience. So I was forced to work from home with restrictions and such during COVID, and then that rolled in through with another employee just working from home. And with those two jobs I actually had two children during that. So I was privileged to be in a situation where, my wife was at home with the children, and I was working from home. And that time I was able to spend with, those formative young years was really invaluable. So in terms of, quality of life and fulfillment and such, it's very high. And then I've been sort of dealt with the idea of, I've entertained other job offers, and putting a dollar value to that time has been really challenging. And I've turned down opportunities because I find for myself that, the quality of life, working from home, young kids, I really can't even begin to put a dollar value on it. And so it's interesting to look forward on what that might look like.
Is there anything you miss about going into an office-like setting or a workplace setting?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the social elements that you miss out on. Just friendships you build, understanding different personalities. That's always very challenging to do, through teleconferencing and such. But I'm in a position where, and like others, you can participate in those team building activities, trade shows, that sort of stuff, where you do get that physical engagement to begin to build up that rapport. But it certainly it takes a lot longer, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Look, very interesting. Yeah. Great to hear from you today, Riley. I'm glad we could fit you in. That's being at home with two very young children and speaking about the rewards of that. I mean, meantime, in the government of Canada, which I said is the country's largest employer, if you think about it, 350,000 people working for the government of Canada, not all, of course, in office towers and in, the nation's capital or other cities across the country. But it is telling that you have all the public sector unions, explaining to their members, this is how you fight back. This work order from the government of Canada that you have to be in the office 3 days a week. I mean, they're going so far as to offer step-by-step guides. If you don't feel right about going back to the office 3 days a week, this is how you fight it. This is how you refuse unsafe work. You all have a right to reasonable accommodation. And I've spoken to union leaders in the past of the big government unions since this back to the office order came into effect a couple of years ago. And for them, it's the top complaint for their members. A lot of them work from Ottawa. They don't like fighting, the big city traffic. They don't like taking public transit. The parking downtown is very, very expensive as well. But I guess one of the questions I've always had when it came to the government workers and whether they should be in the office 5 days a week, I ask myself, do I care? Should I care? If the worker can do the job from home just as well, maybe even better, why should I care? If I need to get a hold of someone about a tax issue or a pension issue or a family benefits issue, Why should I care if that person is in an office tower in Ottawa or in their home office somewhere in suburban Ottawa? Maybe a person working from home for the government is working better for the government. And wouldn't that be a good thing?